Today, I'm gonna plant 2,000 spring blooming bulbs in my small backyard garden. My secret? I'm gonna use a bulb auger. It makes things so fast. Now, in this video, I'm gonna show you the steps to prep your garden beds, bulb spacing and depth, and how I actually plant my bulbs, as well as give you a few pointers about bulbs in general. This is Michelle at The Garden Spot, and I've been patiently waiting for our first killing frost. For many in Zone 5, we've already had plenty of nights at or below freezing, but all of the foliage was still looking really good, so it was really hard for me to want to cut it down. That is until it dipped down to just 9 degrees. So now that everything is brown and the ground has thawed, I have a tiny little window to plant my bulbs. Now, I have a full video about choosing the right bulbs. It's part 1 of this series. If you're still in the choosing phase, it might help you to check that video out. Today, I'm gonna plant up some crocus, reticulated iris, a ton of varieties of tulip, daffodils, Grecian windflower, and some alliums. And I'm sure there's some other things in these boxes too. Now, almost all bulbs need full sun. This is something that's really important to keep in mind while you're planting. But here's kind of the magic of all of this. They only need full sun during their short growing period, which is usually done by the time herbaceous perennials and deciduous trees start to leaf out for the spring. So looking around my garden, everywhere is full sun, even underneath the trees. The only places I won't plant is in the shade of my garage and in the shade of my house. So bulbs really dig free draining soil. It's definitely their preference. In the perfect world, they want sandy loam. I have silty loam, and guess what? They are just gonna have to deal with it. In my experience, success with bulbs is more about when you get moisture, so the best time is spring and fall, and having a relatively dry summer. It doesn't have to be bone dry, but relatively dry. Now, if you garden in clay and you do choose to amend your soil, you have to amend the entire planting bed, not just the planting hole. So if you were just to add some sandy loam into each planting hole, you'd do the opposite of what you want by turning that hole into what's effectively a bucket of water. Because we all know that water flows more easily through the sandy loam, and then it's gonna hit that dense clay layer, which acts as a barrier because it's not as permeable as the sand. So this is why I tell people to plant plants in the soil they've got instead of trying to change it. When should you plant? Plant when the soil is about 55 degrees or colder. In areas without a significant freeze-thaw cycle, this is pretty easy to time. Here in South Dakota, or anywhere else far from the coast or Great Lakes, this can be kind of a challenge. So I totally recommend for at least a few frosts to happen before you plant. Because as we all know, we can have temps around 20 degrees and then a week or two in the 60s. I also like to wait until all the garden foliage has completely died back. It's just a lot easier to work, and it's not so heartbreaking to cut stuff back. It's really important to plant at the right depth. So I'll link a guide to planting depth in the description, but in general, small bulbs like crocus and reticulated iris should be 4 to 6 inches deep, and larger bulbs like daffodils, tulips, and alliums should be about 8 inches deep. So incredibly, some bulbs can adjust their planting position once they're planted by moving deeper into the soil. I guess they're searching for just better conditions, right? Now, as cool as that is, I wouldn't mess with planting bulbs too shallow. I don't know how long it takes a bulb to move, but I'm willing to bet that if you put a tulip bulb just 2 inches into the soil and a few days later it gets down to 10 degrees, you're probably gonna be left with a mushy bulb. So that's where the bulb auger can really shine, because it can just dig down so deep, so you never have to worry about getting the right depth. Lastly, I'm gonna cover my bulbs with a light application of mulch once I'm done planting. It'll probably be some arborist chips, but mostly shredded leaves from the lawn, and some clipped up annuals from the growing season. Before I begin, don't add fertilizer to your bulb holes. Direct contact with fertilizer burns plant roots, and this is pretty well established in the literature. I'm not a big believer in fertilizing most things anyway, but that's a different video. All right, let's plant some bulbs. First up, we are gonna cut back some foliage. I'm actually a really big believer in leaving all of the standing plant matter in my yard. However, I can't do that. Otherwise, I won't be able to see where I'm planting and I'll end up planting too sparsely. So unfortunately, I have to take a lot of this out, but I will be reapplying an application of mulch. It actually really is a shame to have to take out all of this awesome cover because it really does help to insulate your garden. So I will definitely be putting a lot back just to help keep things a little bit warmer, especially some of these new conifers that I planted. You know, they are really susceptible to cold spells, so I'm going to want to protect them as best I can. So you may have noticed that I left the lilies standing, and that was really intentional. So you want to make sure that you leave anything standing that's going to help you know what not to run your bulb auger into. All right, so now that I have one of my beds here all cleared out, I can go ahead and start planting. Now, I wanted to show you how I was gonna do all of my beds, but I'm running out of daylight. That's all right, I think this will give you a feel for exactly how to go about planting your bulbs. So here you can see my bulb auger. So this is a bulb auger, and this is just like a standard one. I think I bought it off of Amazon. I'll drop a link below, but to open it, you just open up this piece of the drill and it'll just slide in and out. Just know sometimes it can kind of loosen up while you're using it, so keep an eye on it. Other than that, if you have a clutch, you're gonna wanna adjust your clutch to give pretty easily. Otherwise, if you hit a rock or a root of a tree, it can kind of jerk your wrist around. So I'll show you how I deal with any of that in just a moment. Other than that, you're gonna have speeds on your drill as well, or you may not. I have it here on 1, which is a nice powerful setting. All right, let's plant some bulbs. Okay, so to use this auger, it's pretty simple. I'm just gonna stand up, go like this, and I actually rest the drill against my inner thigh. And I do this so that if I do happen to hit a root of a tree or a rock or something, the drill doesn't wanna fly out of my hand. So it's just this easy. Perfect. Now I have a super deep hole. It's at least 8 inches deep, which is what I wanted for my daffodils. So the spacing is gonna be really close. My next bulb spacing is gonna be just right here. So I'm gonna drill a hole every couple of inches, really, really tight, and that's how you get that really nice, dense display in the spring. So to plant this up, I'm just first gonna go ahead and drop in a tulip bulb. This is gonna be one of my deeper bulbs. I could do a tulip or a daffodil or an allium. I'm just gonna drop that guy in there, throw down a touch of soil, and then I'm gonna put in a shorter bulb. So right here I have some muscari, and they've already started to sprout. That's perfectly normal. And I'm just gonna go ahead and drop 3 of these guys in. And voila, that hole is planted. So now I'm just gonna go ahead and do this a couple hundred more times, and we're gonna have this all planted up. All right, guys, that's it from me at the garden spot, and I hope you find some time to plant some bulbs this week in your garden.